Hey, welcome to a new Project Kamp update. So we bought a big piece of land and are prototyping a more sustainable way of living. Not sure how it's gonna go, but let's see. And in the previous video you've seen us setting up the base camp with the shipping containers. But now what we actually need there is water. And on the land itself we have a few sources of water. Like here, this lake we cleaned up. And in this video we're gonna do some water testing to see if the water is drinkable, what we need to do to filter it. So we're gonna fill up some jars and do some testing. Alright, so the first test is the water from this lake. It looks sort of okay. Not super clean, but I guess we only really know once we test it to see how drinkable it is. But this place would be the best source of water because it's very close to the base camp, so it would be by far the easiest one. But we also gonna get two other places on the land, the creek and the swamp. So we're gonna get some water and then we'll run some tests. So on to the next location, the swamp. So you might have seen us cleaning the swamp in the other update videos. Slowly plants are actually growing back, so we have to take care of that. But this thing starts to blossom, which is nice. But yeah, we're here for the water. Alright, so we have our water for the swamp, and now we have to go there in the back to the creek. Destination reached. The water from the creek feels most fresh by far, probably because it's running water compared to the other ones. But the downside of this one is it could easily change. I mean, depends on what the flow is coming from. And it's quite far from base camp, so it would be hard to get drinking water. But let's see what the tests are going to show us. Alright, so let's get on with our very professional setting. Alright, so here we have our three waters, lake, swamp and the creek. They look pretty similar, to be honest, looking at them from each other. The swamp has some green stuff in it and the creek is the coolest one. These ones are a bit warmer. But let's do some testing. So we're going to do two different tests from different brands. The first one is this tiny package. So I bought two of these in a package for €16, so quite affordable, I would say. The second test is going to be the 16-in-1 water test kit. This one has a lot of packages inside for different tests. This one was also around €60, so quite a bit more. But it also has more tests. Alright, so let's get started. So we're going to start off with the simple tests. So the package basically contains a lot of test strips. And then you dip it in the water for a few seconds and then you see, according to these little color cubes, what it actually means. So for instance, this test measures chlorine, iron, copper, lead, nitrate, nitrate, the total water hardness, the total alkalinity and pH levels. Seems pretty straightforward. You dip it in for 2 to 3 seconds and then within 1 minute you read the results. So let's try it out. So it looks like a lot of copper and lead in here. Although they also seem a bit unchanged, these colors. Okay. The yellow actually got more green. Alright, so let's test them all and write down the results. Next one, the swamp. Last one, the creek. So the results seem pretty similar, which could be the case. because the water is relatively close to each other. The only real difference is one I saw more copper than the other, but I'm not sure if I just read this thing inaccurate, because I mean, could be 50, could be 20, I don't know. In general, the only thing I really saw changing from the original color was the alkalinity, which really went from more yellow to green. But let's get on to the next test, which is the more expensive one. Has a few more of these bags inside. It also has a little plastic thing to put in a joint, to put in your water testing, kind of useless. And a little chart to write down your tests. The strips looks very similar compared to the other one, except this one has more things to measure. So it also has, for instance, MPS, fluoride, acid, ammonia, bromine, carbonate, I don't know. Yeah. Similar process here, put it into the water for 2 to 3 seconds, but then they say hold it horizontally for 30 to 50 seconds, which I didn't do with the other one. And then also again in 30 seconds you read the results. 1, 2, 3. Ah, you see this one changing actually. Right, so have a look. Hardness 25. So ammonia should be between red and yellow, but it became green. Alright, next. Also this one looks very similar to the previous one. Let's have a look now at the last one. So this package actually gives you a reference where you should be. So this is sort of the OK area. So you can instantly check as well if it's okay. But even this is quite hard. So for instance, if you have fluoride, I mean the 100 plus is really different color. I mean slightly different, but these look so identical. So it's super hard to even say which one it is. But then these are not good and this one is good, which makes it quite tricky. I'll continue to do a few more tests because I have plenty of strips, and then I can see if the results are consistent. And then it's a bit messy, but I'll show you a nice chart right now. Alright, so here we have the chart. Here you can see all the things that we measured, and then let's start with the lake. In the first test, these were the results, and then with the second test we got a bit more because the test was a bit more advanced. Same for the swamp and for the creek. So these are an overview of all the results. A few noteworthy things, for instance here you can see the lead, which is kind of an important one. Quite a big difference between 50 and 0 for the lake. And also for instance here they both tests show 0 and both show 40. So I don't know if it's really in the water or just the test being not very accurate. Now these tests were pretty easy to do and to get. So in a way a good way to check your water. But I also don't really trust them. I mean, it seems too good to be true. So just to find out if they're accurate and to see if they're actually useful, we're also going to send one sample of each water type to a laboratory. And in one they're going to do a microbacterial test, and in the other one a chemical test. So time to go to the laboratory. This is a bonus round to see if it actually does something with different liquids. Ooh. Alkalinity, chlorine 0. That looks a lot like swamp actually. So this is my pea and this is the swamp. A lot of similarities except for chlorine. I have less chlorine than the swamp. So now we're gonna bring these bottles to the laboratory here where they're gonna do a water analysis. So we just brought the water samples, now we have to wait 8 days. Well, yeah, we don't like waiting, so. Right, so here we have the water tests back in an envelope. Let's check it out. Okay, that looks very compact. It is in Portuguese with a lot of things I don't know. Let me translate and put it in a chart. Okay, so let's have another look at this very exciting chart. So we have test 1, test 2, lake, swamp and the creek. So these are all the results. And now let's make some space so we can add the third test, which is the laboratory one. Obviously aligning things a bit. So if we dump in all the information, it's actually quite a bit more because I just measured more things like phosphate, potassium, erythrococcus, clostridium, perfin. Yeah, I don't know this stuff. I might need another translation to just understand this. But it's also way more information which the other tests don't have. And it also actually has missing some information which the other test did have. So it feels quite incomplete in terms of how to really compare some numbers. So if we really want to compare numbers that we had from all the 3 tests, we end up with this chart. It's the nitrate, nitrate, chlorine, iron, hardness and pH. So it's not that much. And some interesting things, for instance, the nitrates, we got 0 in the other tests. And here it has more, like 2.4, 2.2. Same for chlorine. We had very little in the other test 1 and 2, but way more in this laboratory test. And if we add this other chart, we can also see what it actually means. So for instance, what does it mean to have more nitrate or more chlorine? So here we added this thing that it says what it should be. So for instance, here for the nitrate, 50 is mandatory, maximum of 50. So we're still in that limit. But you also have options like iron, which it's not mandatory by law, but they sort of use it as a reference. But also here you actually see quite a big difference between the lake and the swamp and the creek. So it was kind of difficult to really compare these tests with each other because the variables are so different. But the main thing we got from the laboratory of all the 3 areas was it's not drinkable, the water. And if you want to make it drinkable, you need to do something like filtering it. But it's still a bit difficult because first you need to understand which kind of filter, but also it might depend on which time of the year or when you measure it. And at this point we don't really have a full overview of what's going to happen a whole year around in these water areas. So it would require a bit more measuring. So in general it felt like kind of a big topic if we really want to make sure we can get proper drinking water from these areas. So we've been looking a bit into getting a borehole just to get us started with the drinking water, to make sure it comes from a fresh source in the earth. So if it comes out, you don't really need to filter it, most likely, because it's pretty pure. Which would be quite an easy step for us to go into water to drink, and then over time phase it out and understand more what the lake does and the swamp does to see how we can get drinking water out of that. So yeah, that was what we learned from all these water tests. Hope it was useful for you guys. Thank you guys on Patreon for making sure we can afford these water tests. Because we don't really need to do this in a way, but it's also, I think many other people would have this question, like which water test and how to do it. So it's fun to try it out and hopefully make it a bit easier for you guys if you are in the same position to understand what to do with your water. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. If you want to make sure to see the video that comes next, subscribe. And yeah, otherwise I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.